Hey everybody, welcome to Between the Lions, a bi-weekly bite-sized oral history of the ongoing mission by the musical collective known as My Soul Among Lions to put all 150 psalms from the Bible to music. My name is Nathan Alberson, humble and obedient host. That's Pastor Phil right there.
Hello, Nathan.
And Pastor Jake right there.
Hey.
And today, we're going to talk about a little psalm that Phil and I wrote called Beyond the Stars, based on Psalm 8. And we left you with a cliffhanger last time because we said there was some drama about this one. Maybe the most drama regarding My Soul Among Lions.
Not maybe. There's no maybe.
Is there? Well, I was trying to think if there was anything else, maybe something I wasn't directly involved with. To put this all in context, Psalm 8 is one of my favorite psalms. I'm going to make a little space for myself. You may not like me by the end of this one, folks, and I don't like me either, so it's fine. But we talked a few episodes ago about the idea of Christ's kingship, or just the paradoxes of who Christ is being something that Jake has contemplated his whole life and something that he's fixed on as an anchor point in his religious experience. For me, the God of the heavens is one of the, I don't know how to say it, one of the most transcendent ideas in the Bible. I love all the Psalms that have to do with God stretching the skies, with God putting the stars in place.
Yep.
And I don't really get excited about nature. I don't go for a walk in the woods and just feel like the majesty of all the birds. And I'm just not one of those people that gets excited about that kind of thing. In fact, you could argue that I have a little chip on my shoulder and I'd rather be inside in the air conditioning on my iPhone. But the one thing that really just connects to me and gives me the feels about nature is standing under the sky, whether it's a big blue summer sky with clouds or whether it's a sea of stars in the ocean of darkness, whether it's clouds moving across the moon. Just the idea that God created this vast expanse just to show off his majesty and then put man over the world. But we don't have to go too deep into it. But I love that idea. It's so cool. And Psalm 8 is one of the best evocations of it in the Bible. So you can find it, just like you can find this theme running through the theme of like the paradoxes of Christ as the lamb and the lion, all this stuff running through Jake's work. You can find articles by me and things like this. There's one called
The Extravagance of the Stars.
The Extravagance of the Stars, a little Chestonian riff on just the idea that God created all these stars for what? Just to show off, basically, if I can put it that way, if that's not demeaning, because he's God, because he's like, here's a billion more giant galactic things burning. It's amazing. It boggles my mind.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so that can perhaps give you not much, but an iota of sympathy for the fact that I did not respond well. I remember Jake came back from his retreat. He spent a week with Jody, and he came back and he played demos of basically the bulk of what became Psalms 1 through 10, the album.
Right.
And it was really cool and it was really great. And Psalm 6 was great. I remember hearing that for the first time. I remember sitting on Jake's couch, probably had a little whiskey or something like that, and just hearing them, and it was warm and it was mellow and it was cool. And it's like, they did it. This is great. Like, these are all Psalm 9, I think, came out of that. You just came back with, it's like you'd gone
basically an album.
You'd gone on an expedition and you'd come back with gold and jewels, and you were just like, here's another pile of gold.
We did the fabled thing that
Indiana Jones,
or just some band, some artist is just going to go to a cabin for a week and come back with an album.
Right, and you pulled it off. It'd be easy to go to a cabin, be posers for a week, and then come back with nothing. But that's not what happened. and so, I don't know. I am a sharp-tongued individual and was more so then. So I don't know. I may not have even been nice about some of the gold that you brought back. But the one thing that I remember really not being pleased with was that. Majesty. And I don't know what you remember about this, Jake, but the way I remember it, I was just death on it from the very beginning.
Yep, you hated it.
I hated it.
And didn't mind saying so.
And we just listened to it. It in no way deserves the visceral feeling that I felt. Maybe you can have a little sympathy for it when you realize I had this personal notion of what this psalm should be, of what our feelings, what are, of the music of the spheres. If we're going to write music for the stars, like I had my own idea of that. And this did not, a campfire song wasn't it. I did not feel that existential feeling the way that Jake and Jody had expressed it. And I took it personally. And I shouldn't have, but I did.
Well, both Psalm 6 and Psalm 8 have, or Majesty, I should say, both the Psalm 6 that we have, Majesty, the Psalm 8 that we brought back, resolve with Jesus. And that was the first time we introduced that idea to ourselves up Michigan. And then we came back and introduced it to everybody else.
And there's
everybody
stumbled over that, or
no, everybody had a different reaction. I think most people really loved it.
Yeah,
you're right. You did not like in either of those contexts.
I'm an artist first, Jake, and and what I like is give them 2 + 2, let them make 4. That's my motto. To me, there's something really cool about the fact that the Psalms are about Jesus, but they never say the name Jesus. Why? Artistically, I'm not talking theologically now. I'm just like, as an artist, as an interpreter of the Psalms, why remove that element? Because that's actually a really cool, interesting, fun element. So that would be my argument. And it still kind of is, but also nobody wants Psalm 6 to not resolve with "Come, Jesus, come." Sometimes it just works. And I can't really argue with that. But on some kind of basic level, I was ready to not like it. You also have to understand that I'm just going to give all the excuses for my behavior up front before I describe what the behavior was in more detail. I thought that you were supposed to be really nasty when you were arguing something. I mean, I just had this basic idea that men, when they argue, should have their swords out and they should try and stab the other argument to death, if not the other person who's holding the argument to death. Like, I thought that was what Christian men were supposed to do, because the culture's full of wimps and people who don't do that. We're supposed to do that. Now, it turns out that that's pretty immature. And that's something that immature guys who are just hitting biblical masculinity for the first time often fall into. It's that cage stage kind of, Jake likes to say, you got to hammer everything's a nail kind of thing. So I was right there. Like, I'm excited about this, and I have strong feelings, and everybody needs to know about them. I should just vent my anger about them. I still like to express my feelings strongly, especially in a forum like this one, where it's kind of fun to argue about things, like on an episode of The Bookening or something like that. Like, why take a weak position on The Bookening? That's not good podcasting, right? But it turns out when you're collaborating with your friends and with your coworkers, there's some tact and diplomacy and love and kindness, things like, there's like the fruit of the Spirit that should be evident. And so there was absolutely no excuse for the way I responded. It was wicked, but I didn't know it at the time. And it was really a kind of a turning point in my life, because I responded poorly and nobody was having it. And it just made me realize over time, as I processed that in retrospect, like, oh, well, Nathan, actually, maybe you should try not being a jerk. That might be good. It's kind of an important moment for me. But all of that to say, the story is, I just decided I hated this Psalm 8, this Majesty. Like, it was not good. I started arguing against it pretty stringently. I told Jody that King David was probably rolling in his grave somewhere. And
one of the milder things I said.
One of the milder things I said. And it all culminated one fateful Thursday night with this email that I wrote, which was just an anger. It started out nicely enough, but it was just like this long rant, which I'd be mortified to read now. That included some bad words and stuff, like saying what a terrible psalm this was and just tearing it apart every which way. Like, I was really angry at this psalm for whatever reason. And it was such a ridiculously over the top email that we had a friend who happened to be on the email chain in Toledo. And I visited Toledo one time, church that we're friendly with there. And I met several people who were like, oh, yeah, you're the email guy. I'm like, oh, okay, great. That's what I'm famous for. Guess it exchanged hands. So I send this nasty email for some reason thinking that that's going to achieve something, like that'll get them, they'll be backed into a corner and they'll have to see the error of their ways. That didn't work. I remember, Phil, you took me aside the next day and just said, you can't send an email. Like, just
I did. I forgot about that.
Like, you can't be. You just said you
I
can't.
took you into Tim's office.
Yeah. It was the whole thing. And I felt really bad because, and I'm sure a lot of young men experience this who are hitting some of these things, especially people. And I should have been more mature than that. I've grown up with this stuff. I wasn't actually hitting biblical masculinity for the first time. But I don't know. I guess I just never learned how to argue or something like that, how to argue productively. That's my excuse, at least. That's the only excuse that holds any water. So Phil just said, like, you can't be like this. This is stupid. And I was like, I didn't get it at the time. I was like, why? Why not? Like, what's wrong with it? It really took a long time. But I apologized to Jody. We had a nice conversation. He said he forgive me. It was kind of him. I shouldn't over it, but it's embarrassing. So we've talked about this enough. Anyway, did you have something to add, Jake?
Nope. I found it, but I'm not going to actually read it for myself.
Yeah, no.
The first blast of the trumpet.
Oh, I guess we could tell people that.
That's what I was debating. The first blast of the trumpet against the monstrous Psalm 8.
Yes, I called it the first blast of the trumpet against the monstrous Psalm 8.
That was the subject line of the email. That's all I was looking for.
Yes.
Trying to get that right in my head.
Yeah. Well, I'm funny. Okay. So I had too much fun with it. The funny thing is, like, if somebody sent me an email right like that now, I would have so little patience for it. I hate when people try to be clever in emails. Oh, well. Now, I don't remember exactly what the chronology. I don't remember how much time passed after that. But at a certain point, because the debate became then a little less heated and more friendly, but everybody still knew, like, I was the enemy of majesty.
What month was the retreat, Jake?
Well, I think it would have been March.
Because I think it was May that you end of May that you delivered this psalm to me, your version.
Right.
So
maybe it must have been later. Because
the retreat?
Yeah, because I have this email. You sent this email in June. And then I have an email from you saying...
It was probably...
I have an email from you thanking Jody for his version of your version of Psalm 8 in July.
Huh.
So maybe April, May, sometime after Holy Week, maybe?
I can't... You know what? Here's how I know. I think it was the playoffs, the NBA playoffs. So it was probably June. This is probably almost right away.
No, because May 20th is when he sent me his Psalm 8. And that's what I was going to say is the great thing about reactions to other people's writing is it inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. I mean, I've had that happen to me. You read something, you're like, oh, I can do better than that.
Right.
And it can unlock something inside you to set you free to write something of your own by seeing someone else's work on something.
Well, it was kind of like I had thrown down. Now I needed to show up or whatever the saying is. Like show out. Yeah. Like I was making, broadly speaking, taking away all the negative energy that I infused it with. The point I kept making was we can do better. So now I needed to do better. Like I needed to put my money where my mouth was.
Yeah.
So I wrote a Psalm 8 and Phil actually brought the original version.
Brought the original. And I remember for my sake, we didn't use all these lyrics. We made a fair bit of changes, but I remember being inspired by the first two lines of
If I could see beyond the stars.
if I could see beyond the stars and pierce the darkness with my sight.
That's the whole song.
Yeah.
That's the winner right
Yep.
there.
And it just from there it's like, oh yeah, I love this. And I responded to you, yeah, this is great. I'll get back to you,
As long as I'm being self-deprecating, though, my eye would be a mean device.
Yeah,
to
I
see
didn't
your
like
glory
that
in the
very
night.
much.
Boo.
Yeah.
Power of revision, folks, and collaboration.
Yeah. This is one of the great stories of collaboration, I think.
I think so, too.
Because Nathan gave it to me. It was long meter 8888. And that didn't work with what I had in my mind, musically speaking, after I got going off the text. And we decide to end it with a little 4-syllable
Yeah.
beyond the stars at the end of the line, or
Well, it was a real risk because if you just took lyrically what the song is now and put it on paper, I mean, I remember reading that first one and thinking, oh, there's some really great stuff in here. And then I remember reading your revision of it and thinking, before I had, I think, listened to it and thinking, this is dangerous because this could come off as really childish, like a nursery song.
Mm-hmm.
And so it struck me as being risky the way that it, so how's it going to, as if I could see beyond the stars,
pierce the darkness with my sight,
and see your glory in the night beyond the stars, the way that little couplet worked felt almost sort of nursery rhymey to me.
I mean, you could, if I could see beyond the stars, and it has that kind of.
Yeah, it just felt like a real risk. And then I heard the music to it and I thought, oh, okay. And then Jody took it and slowed it way down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one went through a lot of permutations.
Because it was more upbeat as you guys had it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then he slowed it down and then it took on a more contemplative.
Well, didn't you have to
feel.
come back with, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you wrote a couple choruses to one, right, Phil?
We were struggling to find the right chorus. In the end, I think we have something that more reflects the chorus of Scripture. How majestic is your name in all the earth.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Rather than something a little more fleshed out.
This is, by the way, an example of something that's not line for line the psalm. We've talked about some of the psalm. This is very much Nathan's riff on what the psalm makes him feel, if that's not too subjective and artsy sounding for you. The idea of standing in the sky is not David's exactly, but I think it works. It's the way I think of a song like this is it's almost like an ad for the psalm. Like if you like this, then you'll love Psalm 8. And it's got all the basic ideas in there, but it is in some sense its own thing. I guess that's worth pointing out. Yeah, I remember working with our psalm team because I guess we've said before, we were divided into teams. It was me and Philip and Nathan Bailey in Toledo, who was joining us by Skype. Brandon Chastain of the Bookending fame. People will know him. Was there someone else? Was Ben Sulzer there?
Ben must have been on my team. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we had two different teams,
Poor
but
Ben.
It basically ended up being Jake and Jody and Phil and Nathan.
yeah, and then some other collaborators that occasionally weighed in or made some contributions here and there, with Nathan Bailey and Brandon Chastain and Ben Sulzer being the principal ones that I remember having real input. There may have been a couple other people that I'm forgetting, and I'm sorry if I am, but...
Well, Brandon Chastain made a real contribution that I've always remembered and wanted to give him credit for, which is the ending, the circular, the closed loop of, and all that seeks, the birds and beasts on land and sea, and all that moves through day and night, and all that seeks to see your light beyond the stars. I actually don't remember who came up with that line, but Brandon was the one who said, we must do that. And sometimes that's what you need is someone with taste to be on your team and say, because you'll throw out a million ideas.
This is the right answer.
And you can't.
Yeah. Or, no, this is actually a good idea. You've thrown out 10 ideas and you can't sort the good from the bad because you're so in the middle of it.
Yeah, I find this in writing comedy a lot is you can generate 10 punchlines, but it really helps to have somebody there to laugh at one of them because you'll be like, okay, well, let's go with that one.
Yeah. I remember not being happy with how it was bookending, and I think when we met together, we were working through that.
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of tug of war on that.
But so that was a great suggestion. Bookend it with Beyond the Stars.
Right. Well, and it has that Romans 8,
even
the birds and beasts groan and under the weight of...
Even that bookending of it, I think it really did have the potential to go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of a risky thing.
But that is, some of the greatest songs and the greatest poems and the greatest pieces of art are able to walk that line between
almost falling off.
Yeah,
because
it's either is this childish or innocent?
Mm-hmm.
Is this sweet or is it saccharine? Is it moving or is it sentimental?
No Goldilocks, it's just right.
And really, you're swinging for the fences and you're trying to walk those lines, and it's no secret that Majesty went too far to Nathan's taste, at least.
Yeah, listen, I hope, folks, I haven't made you not like Majesty. Majesty's a fine song. My disgust with it was something personal and regrettable.
And there was some truth in your criticisms of it.
Yeah, I think I'd still stand by some of the criticisms, but at the end of the day, if people like that song, that it doesn't make them bad people. King David is not rolling in his grave, and it did not. There did not need to be a first blast of the trumpet against the monstrous.
Well, my point though is that this has become one of the best songs that we've ever done, and it is because it manages to walk that line so well from beginning to end and take real risks that pay off in real ways. That it didn't have to work, but it did work, and it worked really, really, really well.
Well, thank you. I like it too. It's one of the few things in my life where, artistically, where I'm just happy with it. Like if it gets played, I don't think, oh man, I wish I would have done this or that, or like, we'll sing it at church and I'll look around and people have their hands up and I'll be like, I could put my hand up too. Yeah. Like, I like this song.
It's a wonderful example of a good collaborative nature of this kind of work.
Absolutely.
I think, when you see a text, sometimes it's very hard to fit a text to a music, or your mind's going a different direction than maybe the poet's mind. Mm-hmm. And for me, I took the liberty, the license to just say, well, no, this is what I want. This is what I think it should do.
Yeah.
And I roughed that in and gave it back to Nathan. We got together and met and kind of argued these things out. And we had disagreements. And I think you won many of the disagreements in terms of the lines that stayed.
But you won the structure, which was right. I mean, 8888 was a lame structure. I'm so glad that you won that one.
Well, I think on this first album, if you're thinking of it just in terms of teams, the collaborative triumph for me and Jody was Psalm 6, where, I had to rework something I was in love with into something that I was mistrusting musically. I love it. And it turned out better for Jody meddling with it. Sometimes those collaborations don't work and you're not happy, or maybe you're both unsatisfied, or one party's more satisfied than the other, but you can't really make anything work without the other to begin with. But both Beyond the Stars and Lord How Long are the first real breakthroughs, the first real triumphs of actual collaboration.
Right.
In my mind, where we look at those and we say, we made this song. And it would not be anything like what it is now if it wasn't for the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. There is no soulmate outside of the chemical thing that happens when you put Phil and Nathan together. Psalm 6, Jody, Jake, same thing.
Yeah. There are other things where, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, where I've written a text and I felt, well, that's good. The finished product is good. It wasn't exactly what I had in mind. In some ways, it's a little bit of a letdown. In other ways, hey, it's a surprising take, and I find it interesting that that's the take on those lyrics that you took. And other times where it's just like, oh wow, I'm going to start crying because you took this humble little poem that I wrote and that I loved, and you made it come to life and hit all of the beats just perfectly, better than I could have imagined. And wow, how humbling to be able to be a part of something like this and to be able to work with you guys on things like this.
Well, I wish I could give myself the credit of having had that reaction when Phil brought back his melody, but everything about this was hard. I remember arguing with Phil about the melody. Yeah. I don't remember exactly. I wanted it to have more variety or something like that, which I don't ever usually say much about the melody, but in this case, I was just like, it was personal enough or something. So even that was hard, and it took having some time away from it and a little distance for me to actually be appreciative of what we'd done together. I think it was actually hearing it live for the first time where I was like, oh man, this really works. And it actually is majestic. It gets that, oh Lord feeling, because it is such a simple melody that it didn't just like blow me away the first time I heard it, but it's one of my favorites.
It's very simple in the kind of American folk kind of way. And that's why I think it works.
Well, and how majestic is your name about, the chorus, it didn't just blow me out of the water the first time, but it does have that transcendent feeling when you do it in worship. You raise your hands, all that sort of thing. So I really love this psalm. This is my favorite one that I've worked on. I'm happy that it came out. Don't like remembering the turmoil and drama that went into it. Don't much like that version of Nathan all that much. He also had a ponytail, so
you had a ponytail?
I think so. That was probably ponytail era Nathan. But Ponytail's gone, and hopefully some of the malice
along with it.
Along with it. You want to say anything about the production of this, or pretty simple?
It is very simple. Yeah, like you said, it's a little slowed down, folksier than I had in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's also on the B side. But
well, here's the thing that really works about that, though. If you listen through the first disc and the second disc as one thing, which I take it many people did.
Yeah.
And many people listening on Spotify or wherever else they listen.
Right.
Do.
It actually makes it into a killer closer.
Yeah, it closes it out.
So it's sort of, I don't know whether this was the design, but it actually gave it a place of importance, actually, kind of. You know.
Well, I do think Majesty in its placement on the first album side really works nicely in the flow of the album.
Yeah, it lends more variety than this would have. And yeah, I agree. I think they were placed correctly. So there you go, folks. That's the story. Beyond the Stars. I hope you like it, because it was painful getting there. And hey, let's give it a listen.
If I could see beyond the stars and pierce the darkness with my sight and see your glory in the night beyond the stars, if I could stand above the sky, your every work beneath my gaze, there'd be no ending to my praise, O Lord my God. You have ordained the mouths of babes, that songs of joy may ever flow, that you may silence every foe through mouths of babes. And how the little children laugh, think how wonderful and odd that you should crown as sons of God the sons of man. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. How majestic is your name in all the earth. How majestic is your name in all the earth. How majestic is your name in all the earth. And then I think, oh, what is man, that you would raise him as a king, reigning over everything your hands have made. The birds and beasts on land and sea, and all that moves through day and night, and all that seeks to see your light beyond the stars. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. How majestic is your name in all the earth. How majestic is your name in all the earth. How majestic is
Hey, if you like this song and you want to buy it, you can buy it on iTunes or Amazon or Bandcamp, all over the place. You can go right now and listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music. Wherever you get your music, it's there. If you want charts, lead sheets, it's all available for free at clearnotesongbook.com. And if you want to support this work and get access to great new content as we write and produce new songs, go to patreon.com/MSAL, where you can sign up for as little as a cup of coffee a month.